Hello everyone and welcome to today's Starseed Healing Circle. So our journey continues. We are in Karnak in Luxor. We're going to the Karnak Temple today. So let's dive into our tuning and we see where the journey takes us. So we're tuning in with the Quan Yin Lightcode Activation today. Quan Yin is the Chinese goddess of compassion and love and healing, and I think it's quite appropriate for where we are temple-wise in our journey and our healing session today. So take a moment to tune into what it is that you would like to work with today, what you would like to receive or let go of, what you would like to heal, clear, what you'd like to remove in your life. And just allow your eyes to gently rest on the light code. Perhaps trace it with your eyes, like a labyrinth for the eyes. And focusing on your goal or an intention or focus for today. You can spend as much time here as you need, using this light code as a way to tune in to the healing that we are sending out today, and also an activation. Okay, so today we find ourselves in Luxor. It was a flight from Cairo to Luxor. I think it was sort of in the middle of the night. That wasn't quite in the middle, it was quite late. But we got to Luxor and we got our hotel and everything, and then we went off to some temples. So we started off at the Karnak Temple in Luxor. I was quite excited about this, but yes, the journey unfolded in an interesting way. Let's have a look at what we have today. We'll come back to the setup in a moment. So this was arriving at the Karnak Temple in Luxor, and it looks a lot smaller than what it is. It's actually quite massive. This is the largest temple complex in, I think, in the world. So not even just in Egypt, but in the entire world. And it is a temple complex, which means it's not just one temple. It is many that are complex together. And yeah. Anyway, so we arrived here, and I think just arriving here for me, there was a sense of, number one, reverence, and number two, I started feeling incredibly upset in the fact that this temple is so neglected from our point of view. So as we come in, we've got these rows of rams. This pathway with the rams is actually about 3 kilometers long and connects the Luxor temple and the Karnak temple. And for many years, this whole pathway, this almost 3 kilometer stretch, was a place where homeless people stayed. So it's only in the last few years where they've actually cleaned up the path. So I mean, I only found out about this in the evening, so after we've been to this temple. But yes, so this is the entrance way to that. This is the ram-headed sphinxes are the god AMON, or Amon, one of the creator gods. So this is just another detail as we come into the temple. We started off going through a series of these alcoves or rooms. Each room had these little alcoves in the back, and each of those alcoves would traditionally contain statues. And then you would place your offerings and stuff and your prayers in these temples. The thing that caught my attention first and foremost was the defacement of the temple. So you can't really see it clearly on this image. This one is pretty okay. But in many of the rooms, the faces have been chipped off. The names have been chipped off. And apparently those were done by Christians, early Christians, when they came into Egypt and they started taking over. They defaced many of the Egyptian temples or gods so that they can't be recognized. And that is, and I didn't know that at the time. I just saw the defacement and I felt really angry. I felt upset. I felt like I didn't even want to connect with our group. We were a group of about 20 spiritual people, and we had a guide with us, and the guide literally took us room by room. And when I went into the first room, I was like, I'm getting out of here. So I actually went on my own, and I went on my own through the rooms just to soak up some of the energy. But there was this underlying anger and disappointment and upset energy, which I thought was mine. But later on, when I spoke to some of the people, including Walter, my partner, he had a very similar energy, and it was this. I think the feeling was that here we are in a sacred space, something that was used for thousands of years as a sacred space, and now people are walking through it like almost like a shopping mall. So there's no reverence, there's no honor for the work or the energy or the focus or the intent of this place. So it was very interesting to see how these temple complexes activated the energy within us as we went. Just to give you a size perspective, that's a man standing next to one of the pillars. So a lot of the pillars have been actually broken down or collapsed, but this is one of the intact pillars. But you can see here the size of a man next to one of these pillars. This is massive. There's another one. This is one of the first halls, and this is a smaller hall, but you can still see the size of the pillars, and some of the colors are still intact on these pillars. So as I explored, I found this one room off to the side, and the image here looks very light. It is actually not. When I looked into this room, it was pitch black. I could not see my hand in front of my face, but I was drawn into this room, and I just put my hand out in front of me, and I walked into the place and went like, I have no idea what I'm walking into right now. It's black, I can't see a thing. And I walked until I could feel the wall, and I stayed there for a bit, just connecting with the energy. I had my eyes closed and I meditated for a little bit. And as I opened my eyes and I turned around, I was like, wow, I can actually see in this room. And I noticed above in the center of the ceiling, there was a small little square for the light to come through. And it actually made this beautiful beam of light. And I went to go stand in this beam of light, and I was soaking all of that up. And then, unbeknownst to me, Walter came around the corner and saw that, and then took a photo of that. This photo was taken without a flash. It was taken on slow shutter speed, and so the whole room and everything looks really bright. But if it was taken in normal speed, you would have seen a black room with just a little beam of light and some color. But yeah, this was quite a magical and nice experience for me, where it allowed me a quiet time away from the crowds to really connect with the energy in the space. And my bag with the Wands of Horus cards were in the room with me as well. They're just on the side. So from there, we walked out a little bit more. There's an obelisk in the background. And then we went off to a little temple that is away from the main temple. Little tucked away hidden temple that is in the middle of nowhere. And this was the temple for SEKHMET, or SEKHMET. And SEKHMET is the goddess of war, usually is how people see her, but she's also the goddess of healing. And the techniques that we're going to be doing today with the yarn, I've got some yarn over here, is what we used for this particular part of our journey. Let me just quickly get into this. This is just the back, so from where I was standing, just turned around into the opposite diagonal side. What I found interesting was the staircases, and this is not the first temple I've seen this. I've actually seen this in a number of temples. You could see how the stairs were worn, and in some places, in the Dendera temple, it actually looked like the staircases were melted. So it's very interesting, and you can't really see whether it's just the blocks that's been worn through or what, but these blocks are smooth, and then they've got those curves in them. We went into a little room with the statue for SEKHMET. Before we went into this room, there was another room. I don't think I've got a photo of that in here. We had another room that was also really dark, where you could also meditate a bit. We had a guardian here with us that allowed us in, and it closed the temple so that no one else could come in, and they allowed sort of groups of 4 and 5 to come into this little sanctum where SEKHMET statue was. And I must say, I've never really connected deeply with SEKHMET. I've been following Egyptian mythology and stuff since I was 10 and absolutely love it. But SEKHMET is one of those goddesses that I sort of put to the side and kept at arm's length, because she's just the goddess of war. And so I just associate or know her as bloodlust and war and things like that. But coming into this space and being in the presence of this particular statue, the energy that came from this was very different. And I found that myself in the presence of the space, I could not stand. So I actually went down on my knees and I just sat there and looked at the statue, and I opened a dialogue with SEKHMET, and the message or the energy that I received was one of love and healing, and it was a indescribable feeling. I actually can't really put it in words, but what happened was, on the same day as we were at this temple, another group of people were there, and I know a few groups of people who are still there, different groups from all over the world, a lot of spiritual people going there at the moment. And this one lady was also there. She was there just the morning before we got to SEKHMET, and she wrote an article about the conversation that she had, and Aluna Joy's message that came through was exactly the same as what I received, except that Aluna has a way of actually putting it into words, and I didn't have the way to put it into words. So I'll actually put a link to that article in the description, because it is quite relevant, I think. And so I sat at SEKHMET's feet and really just allowed myself to soak up the energy there, and it changed my connection with this particular archetypal energy. So she came across as more nurturing and loving. She has the warrior streak or the power streak, but there's definitely a mothering, nurturing side to her as well. So just another angle of her face. Some people have reported when they sit in front of her that tears would come from the eyes and things like that. So there's been some very interesting reports from this particular temple. And also the guardians do not allow anybody to touch the statue. They normally read the energy of the people, and then they will select maybe 1 or 2 people that they would allow to touch the statue. And in our group, they allowed one of the girls to touch the statue. And this particular girl, I think, really needed it. There was a lot of energies going on earlier in the day around her, and that was a good release for her as well. So we'll come back to SEKHMET in a bit. From there, we went to another little temple. And again, the whole journey, I was very much almost like away and apart from our group. We were with the group as we moved along, but as soon as we got to our destination, I broke off from the group, and it's almost like I didn't want to be connected with it. So at the moment where I am here, I found this room, and there was a dark spot on the wall where my forehead is, where obviously other people have put their foreheads. And it is an activation center within the back of the temple room. And so I was just drawn to this, and I was attached to the wall and downloading and receiving messages. And again, Walter took the photo without me knowing, because at that stage, everybody was in the next room where they were discussing the doorway. And I'll talk about the doorways in a moment. And I actually, when I saw the doorway, did I see the doorway? Yes, I saw it. And they started talking, and I was like, I actually don't want to hear what they have to say. I don't want to hear anything. I want to go and have my own experience. So that's when I broke off from the group, had my moment over here. And then coming back, I took up a space where I could sit and just wait, and I prepared the Wands of Horus cards over here. And yes, so we were waiting for our turn to get to the door. So I don't know if you can see in my scarf next to me, there's a little, the quartz crystal skull is sitting in there, and the Wands of Horus cards are already in there. So the scarf was ready and waiting, so I could just take the whole lot. So I didn't hear the story that they were talking about the doorways or how the doorways were used or anything like that. And so I just saw they took one person at a time to go to the doorway and just connect with the center of the door. So that was what people were doing. This is what the doorway looks like. So it's basically these doors within doors within doors within doors. And so I just decided I'm going to just go with an open mind and heart and see what comes up for me. And on the left, that was me approaching the door, and I placed down the Wands of Horus cards and this crystal skull. First of what I did was I took them and I connected them with the center of the doorway, and then I put them on the step in front of me. And as I stood in front of the door, I was instructed to actually reach out and touch the outside column of the door. So I did that, and it was, you can see it's the length of my arms exactly. As I was holding on to that, I realized my eyes are closed. My eyes are, I'm holding on, and I'm realizing, okay, these frames are actually rounded and they fitted perfectly into my hands. And so I just stayed there until I was, okay, I'm ready to move on. And then my hands went into the next column, and the next column was a square or rectangle column. And then I stayed there, and then I went to the next column, and that was a rounded column again. And then it was a square column again. And then I realized what's happening here is we're actually moving through the yin and the yang until we get into the center. And these doorways are the doorways leading through the duat or the afterlife, or to different levels of initiation. And so my hands walked in and in until I got to the center, and then my forehead connected with the door. There was quite a bit of download of information, and I saw a lot of hieroglyphs and things just going, so that still needs to process and download. And I stayed there as long as I needed, and then I went out in the same way where I took the frames, and I walked out until I was done with that journey. I was also I think I was the second last person to go, or third last. Walter went after me, and then Mariam went after me. But so the rest of the group had already done their thing. And then that was it, basically, for this temple complex. So this was on our way out, and this is the back end of the temple complex. And you can literally spend a full day here or more. This temple complex is really, really massive. Anyway, the focus for today's session is the work that we did with SEKHMET in the SEKHMET temple. And so for that, I have a grid set up, and I've got two cards from the Book of Doors, we've got AMON on the left and then SEKHMET on the right. And so AMON is there because the main temple complex was dedicated to AMON, which is one of the creator gods, and then SEKHMET on the right because that is our focus for today. The Wands of Horus cards around, I just dowsed to see which one needed to go where. I'm not going to analyze any of that. What is interesting though is that the bar in the car decided to come onto AMON and SEKHMET. So that's the bird with the man's head, and then the two arms that's outstretched like that. And the car is usually the active energy and the bar is the passive energy. So one would think that they would be swapped around, but SEKHMET's energy is working with burning away the car. The car is your astral body. So SEKHMET energy is about burning away the ego and astral so that you can make space for the bar. So it's only afterwards when I looked at it and went like, why did that happen? Why is it sitting there? That I realized, oh wait, actually it's a perfect layout that we have here, because SEKHMET's energy is about clearing away what no longer serves and then opening up the way for the higher frequency or the bar energy to come through. And then the crystal skull is on here as well. Okay, so I'm going to guide you through this piece of the work, which is going to be your work. And let's go into the main video. So I have here a piece of it's this red wool, but you can use yarn or wool or string or whatever. And this is a long piece. I would say it's probably maybe about 3 foot, which is 90 or 900 millimeters. So it's about just under a meter long. Maybe it's longer. Doesn't really matter. And this is a technique that we did at the temple to release energy. So here's how it works. So remember how cats like to play with string? But SEKHMET's twin sister is Bastet, which is the cat goddess, which is about joy and love and music and all of those things. SEKHMET is the one who's associated with the sun and active energy, and it's the nurturing, mothering, but it can also be aggressive and angry, but she's also associated with healing. So what we do with SEKHMET and the string is you've got your piece of string and you think about something that is triggering you or upsetting you. So just bringing it back to the temple, what we did on our way to the Karnak Temple is we each had a piece of yarn or string with us, and anything that triggered us, you go and you put a knot in it. Just put a knot. Okay. So what I did was, once my knot was in, I would feel or think about that trigger, and I would go, when have I felt this before? So whether it's 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, it doesn't matter. Then I would feel into that and I would go and I put a knot right next to that one again. So now I've got 2 knots here. And then you feel, okay, when did I feel that again? And then you would put another knot in. So now this is going to be my 3rd knot. And I've got my knots sitting next to each other like that. And so what you do is you keep tracking back, when did I feel that, 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 until you do not find any more place of when you felt that. So I'm just going to put one more knot in just for luck. So let's say for this particular issue that I'm dealing with, whatever the issue may be, I have 5 trigger points. So now I've got my knots in there. Then what I did was I would focus on this whole trigger again and sort of summarize everything I felt, and then I would take the whole lot and I would put a knot in through the whole lot. So what I'm doing here is I'm folding them double. This is just my way of doing it. Folding them double, and then I'm putting a knot over all of them so that goes like this. So basically all 5 knots have been tied together into one big knot. That's it. So then continue with your day or whatever. Then you find your next thing that triggers you. Same thing, you go ahead and you make a knot, and what I did was then I would put a little bit of a space and then put the next knot in, like let's say there, and then you continue again with when did I feel this? 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 And you put your knots in next to each other. So you continue with that until you've got all of your knots in place, and then put a big knot in again. And the idea is that at the end of your journey, or when you feel ready, this piece of string is going to be a whole bunch of knots. It's going to be filled with these knots. And basically what you're doing is every time you had a trigger, you knot it into the string. The knot holds that energy in place. Every time you think of something and you put a knot in, you hold that energy in place. And then once you get to a point where the string is, or the yarn is complete, and you feel clearer, then this whole lot, you can then take that and knot that up. So at the end of the day, I'd made one big knot in the whole string to put it all together, and then you can burn it. So if you wanted to, you could even set up a little altar for SEKHMET. You could use a photograph of the statue or an image of the picture, and then put your little knotted thing in front of that or on top of that, or even fold it into the image, and then burn the whole lot. So as you burn it, you then release that. So this is going to be your healing that you're going to be doing on your own. I invite you to spend as much time with this as you want to. You could even do it throughout the day. Like just take a string with you or a yarn, take it with you wherever you go. And if anything triggers you during the day, doesn't matter what it is, put a knot in immediately or as soon as you can. And then think about, when did I feel this before? Put a knot. When did I feel this before? Put a knot. When did I feel this before? Put a knot. When did I feel this before? Put a knot. Until you've got all of them, then knot them all together, and then let it go. Then next time you get a trigger, even if it's the same trigger, if you can remember what each of the knots are for, or each of the strings are for, each of the parts are for. Because what I also did was at some stages I would start something, a specific trigger. I'm just going to put another third knot in here just for luck. So I would start a section and then go, I don't want to connect to this anymore, but I've got another trigger coming up. But I know that there's going to be more here. Then what I did was I just put a gap, and then I would start another one. And what is interesting was I could remind myself and say, okay, this knot was about this trigger, this was about this, and this is about that. And so if anything came up again, I could go back, circle back and say, okay, I need to put another knot in over here because now I'm feeling that. So find a way that's going to work for you, and then collect your knots during the day, and then take the whole lot. And if you get to the end of the day, put maybe 2 or 3 knots in that to knot it all together, and then burn that or release that. It is an incredible way to release things that no longer serve you. So that is going to be your homework. And yes, so I'm going to do a little bit of work over the cards over here next to me. I'll just do some pendulum work on it, but I don't think I'm going to keep the recording going for that. So I'm going to actually finish off the recording, and I'm going to invite you to do your homework. And what we'll do is I'm going to set up over here that the layout that we have, and maybe what you could do is you can print that, and if you do your knot work, put your knot folded into the image and then burn that. So I'm going to set this up to be a big vortex that's going to suck up and release and clear. And hello plant, I see a plant behind me is just moving as I said that. So it's going to suck up and clear the energy like a big fire. So, and then also I'm going to invite you to read that article by Aluna Joy. And Just focus. If you want to, you can close your eyes and just be in the moment for this phase. Breathe slow and deep. Imagine or visualize in front of you the goddess SEKHMET. She has the body of a human and the head of a lioness, with a solar disk or a sun disk on top of the head, and a cobra in front of the sun, symbol of protection. As a human standing in front of SEKHMET, think about all of your burdens, your worries, your triggers, any issues that you want to heal, anything that you want to release. Just visualize all of those things and imagine that it's like a big bag or something that contains all of these things, and place that bag down in front of yourself. As a human, we're asking SEKHMET to please remove and release this heavy, dense, negative energy. Now imagine that your consciousness can shift or move. As a human, you are still standing in front of SEKHMET, but allow your consciousness and awareness to move into SEKHMET, so effectively taking her personality on as your own. So climbing into the body of SEKHMET, allow yourself to fit like a glove over a hand. Look through the eyes of SEKHMET at the human in front of you, with a bag containing the issues and the energies that you would like to release. Feel what it feels like to be in the form of SEKHMET. The name SEKHMET comes from the root word SEKHEM, which means power, and SEKHEM can be broken down into Se and Chem. Chem is the ancient Egyptian word for darkness or chaos that gives birth to light, and it does so unknowingly. Se is the bit that takes the light and activates and moves that light. So this is similar to the ancient Sanskrit word guru. Gu, darkness, and ru, lightness, where darkness is transmuted into light. SEKHEM does the same. SEKHMET is the personification of this power, this transmutation power. You are now embodying SEKHMET and looking through her eyes and listening to what the human in front of you had to say. So as SEKHMET, take that bag of issues or things or energies and use the unlimited power of your mind as SEKHMET. Destroy that bag. SEKHMET is very strongly associated with fire, So if you want to visualize her burning the bag or releasing that bag through fire, that'll be fantastic. As SEKHMET, I want you to say words to yourself where you decree what you are doing, and if there's any blessings or healing or gifts that you are bestowing upon the human in front of you, decree those towards this human as the archetypal energy of SEKHMET. When you are ready, allow your focus and awareness to leave SEKHMET's body and to return to your human physical form as a human sitting in front of SEKHMET. Use this opportunity to thank this archetypal energy. You thank it for the work that was done. If you would like to continue the dialogue, you may choose to stay here, where you would then ask questions and then allow your consciousness to switch over to SEKHMET's side, where you would provide an answer, switch back to ask your question. You can spend as much time here as you need. So pause the recording if you need to. On completion of your work, you thank SEKHMET, and we now release her. You become aware of your body again, coming back into this time and space. Perhaps firmly plant your feet into the ground, anchoring the energies. When you're ready, you may open your eyes. Okay. So this is something that you can do a few times if you need to. You can also do that when you've got your string ready and ready to burn that. So that concludes our healing session for today. And I will see you next session for our next temple and next exploration. I'm sending you so much love and light. Take care.